Shalom, people. This is Brother Laws coming at you with another video. And you know, as black people, as Hebrew people, we are never given a chance to grieve like other people. We are never given the chance to be able to contemplate out a response, not only to those that maybe have done an injustice to us, but even to our own who, might be pressing us for some kind of response or reaction. I can remember years ago that it just came into my spirit that as a person, I wasn't even thinking, that we were the people, but I was just thinking as a people, we as black people are always pressed after a tragedy has happened to us to give a response of whether we forgive the person or not. And it doesn't matter whether the person that did the injustice to us was black or white. But we'll get into the differences of that. But I think this is something that we definitely, as individuals and as a people, need to contemplate, a understanding of what the word says about this, and what the word says as a nation's response, of what a nation should do if it is wronged. Okay, so as we see in the last 10 years or so with all of these police shootings, or if it was different mass shootings like what happened in Charleston, what just happened in Buffalo, and also the resurfacing of all the massacres that were done to us as black people in the 1900s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and on. How the mass public approaches us. We know first thing is, we give our thoughts and prayers to you, and then next comes the person that did this, their family is saying this and saying that. What would you like to say to the family of the one that perpetrated this crime? Do you forgive their loved one, and do you forgive them? And I'm saying, what is this? What is this? The person has not even had as much as a chance to grieve about what just happened to them, right? And yet, us now understanding that we are the people, we can understand now why it's always been a rush to get us to say those to them. I'm saying to them those magic words, to forgive them, because even if they didn't ask for forgiveness, which 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, the perpetrators of all the crimes that happened to us, these people never asked us to forgive them, right? So once we initiated that, right, with our mouth, whether it's in our heart or not, but with our mouth, right, we pretty much didn't eliminate the debt that they owed, but we prolonged it. We kicked it down the road and said, at this time, oh no, I'm asking the Most High, Yah, to just take all the debt away. There's no repercussions. All is forgiven. No matter if my life is shattered, my community is shattered. Just go on about your life. I'm gonna go on about my life. When you start seeing that in psychology circles that people have to process grief, and that sometimes it takes that process to be of some years, but almost immediately, sometime within the hour or sometime within the week or days, we're asked to process in that amount of time. That is unrealistic and it's not right. Because what a lot of times you see that those black people that do this, right, they immediately off the bat, oh, I'll just forgive them, right? Later on, you see where their marriages start to dissolve. You start seeing where relationships with others starting to dissolve. Why? They was not able to process, to express the grief or whatever. Forget whether the person came to them and asked forgiveness or not. And like I said, in 9 times out of 10, they did not, right? But that this is the modus operandi, even amongst, right, our own. When you have these gang shootings and these different things that happen, right, and at the funerals and different things, right, you have this, oh, we must come together, wrap arms, when it should be somebody that should be standing up and say, may the Most High Yah, these that are part of the thing to bring this violence and mayhem and torture to their own brothers, may they be outcasts. May they be outcasts of the nations, and anybody that's involved and related to them that is in agreement with them to continue on with this onslaught of destruction in their own community, that if they don't get up and denounce it, but instead they're asking you to, oh yeah, we forgive. No, there has to be a denunciation of evil amongst us, especially amongst those that commit the stuff to us outside of who we are. Talking about stuff like the massacres that happened in the past, where there was no official apology followed with reparations. There should be a denunciation of that. But instead, because we have been put into this pattern of taking the scripture of what they call the Lord's Prayer and placated this upon us in civil actions. See, most of the time when you're looking at the things that Yeshua is talking about, he's talking about one-on-one relationships amongst those, right, of your own nation. And even in that situation where evil has been done, that does not placate that the punishment will still not be meted out to those ones that did the injustice. It just means that as of you holding on to it, you release it and let the Most High do the judgment. Because if you look at Zacchaeus was a crook. He was robbing the people. He was embezzling people. And when he went up to the tree to be able to see Yeshua in the crowd, right, because there was so many people, Yeshua looked up into the tree and said, Zacchaeus, come down. I have need to dine in your house. And when he got to his house, Zacchaeus said, basically, look, Master, I've done all this wicked stuff to these people, and I feel the guilt, I feel the shame about it. I want to give back to these people and restore unto them fourfold for what I have done. And Yeshua said, go and do what you just said. So that this nonsense that we are to quote unquote blanket forgive, and then that does not entail restoring the person and different things back to the way they are, is the reason why we see all this, even this wickedness amongst our people. My wife had, in fact, this is an example. My wife had a family member that lived in another city, and you know, she's an elderly woman and everything. She goes to church and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was some young people that were learning how to drive, right? and their family lived down the street, and I don't know how well she knew them. I guess she just knew them by face. But anyway, the young lady turned up into her driveway, and she has one of these outside garage covers that you can pull your car under. Well, anyway, she pulled in to the driveway, I guess, so she could try to back up, but in the process, she hit her outside garage and bent it. So her family member said, trying to be peaceful amongst our people or whatever, they said, please don't call the police and all this other kind of stuff. And so she said, okay, well, I tried to, forgive and say, let's work it out or whatever. But then some time went on that the promises that was made to repay was never done, right? And then when she confronted these individuals, they said, I got other things to do with my money. I ain't paying for that. That happened a long time ago. And yet her outside garage is still damaged and unusable. Do you understand? This is not what Yeshua was giving us, that scripture for us to go out and give blanket stuff to recalcitrant and degenerate people, even amongst ourselves, let alone these people that have done these massacres and have done these mass shootings and have never asked for forgiveness, but yet their counterparts, those of their people, always continually hovering around us like this fly is hovering around me with, do you forgive him? Do you forgive him? Do you forgive him? Do you forgive him? To try to alleviate. And I say, nay, that we call them into account, that because our people are a matriarchal society, which is not natural. It's not. I'm just being honest. It's not biblical. This matriarchal thing that we have out here, where we have the heart of a woman, right? When this is what is driving and motivating, because women overall are they are receivers. They are receivers. And they are givers of life. So they are not the ones that you want to be leading your army. They are not the ones that you want to be your public executioners and ones that's going to make decisions dealing with life and death, because they're givers of life. So they should not be thrust into those positions. But our open enemy put our women over us as a strategic means to drive the motivation of our thinking, so that we don't have a nation, a mindset that would be as when you see in, I think it was the book of, I want to say it's either 2 Samuel or 1 Chronicles, I can't remember, but it was the part where David had just passed and Solomon had came on the throne, and his brother Adonijah, the Bible said that he should have been made king, but the prophet had told David that no, the Most High Yah wanted Solomon. And so back then, if you were as a king, you had multiple families. Usually out of those families, the son that you would choose to succeed, once he succeeded to the throne, he would kill off his brother and all his other family members to make sure that they would not try to rise up and kick him off the throne. But because Solomon was a man of peace, right? They made sure to keep him surrounded by other counselors, and also that Solomon prayed to the Most High Yah to give him wisdom, because he understood, I'm a man of peace. I don't know how to operate around all these cutthroat people that are around me. But getting back to the story. So what happened after David? They tried to try a coup to try to take over, right? And they blew a horn and said Adonijah is king, but he actually wasn't. So anyway, make a long story short, when Solomon found out, instead of him killing him off, He said, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you and all the co-conspirators that tried to overthrow me a chance. But if you act up, I'm going to have to take you out. So anyway, they remained quiet for a little while. And then the Bible said, by and by, a time came when Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, came to him. And what had happened before she had came to him, Adonijah had came to her and said, you know that all Israel had looked unto me to be the king, right? But as Most High would have it, Solomon got it. He said, so that's it. He said, but I would ask you one thing. Could you please go to your son and ask him, can he give me the Shunammite woman, the woman that had laid in the bosom of David? She didn't have sex with David. She was just like a body warmer or whatever. But she had laid in the bosom of King David. And if you read the book of Songs of Solomon, you can see that her and Solomon actually had developed a relationship with each other. They had developed a relationship, the Shunammite. This is who he's talking about. The one who said, I'm black but comely. But I'm black and comely, rather not black but comely, but black and comely. But anyway, so anyone that would have her as a companion could rightfully claim to the throne because she had laid in the bosom of King David. I mean, obviously, that would be, the next in line would be Solomon. So anyway, she said, okay, I'm going to go ask my son. So the Bible said she came to Solomon, and he said Solomon caused the throne to be placed beside his throne and set his mother on, which is when you see in West Africa, these queen mothers, that's where they came from, because that was passed on down. But anyway, she sat and she said, he said, what you want, mother? I'll give you whatever you want. What do you want? I'll give you whatever. She said, all I want is you to give the concubine, the Shulamite of King David to your brother Adonijah. And it said Solomon got up and said, hold up. Why don't I just give him the throne, right? Because he very well knows that if I give him the concubine, right, then I'm telling him that he deserves the kingship, and the people are going to look me as being weak. He said, most I do to me, if I don't take Adonijah's life today. And the Bible said he sent and they went to Adonijah. He had grabbed hold. He had grabbed hold to the horns of the altar. He said, fall on him that he die. And they killed him. Because when you grab hold to the horns of the altar, you was asking for mercy. Solomon said, no, kill him. Then is it Joab? I think Joab, who had been one of the co-conspirators, he went and grabbed hold to the horns of the altar. He said, kill him, no mercy. Then the high priest, Abimelech, he said, okay, I can't kill you because you have had worn the ephod, and you did help my father in his trouble. So I'm not going to kill you. He said, but I am going to thrust you out of the priesthood. He said, go to Anathoth, which was a place, basically like if you was a retired priest and you couldn't minister anymore, they would send you to Anathoth. He said, get here. He said, because you're worthy of death, but I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to thrust you out. And which fulfilled the prophecy, by the way, that Yah had said he was going to do to the house of Eli, that they would be begging for bread. Because when you went to Anathoth, you know, I mean, you was basically out, out there. But this just goes to show that we as black people, because we basically had given in to the voice of Bathsheba, right? That if Solomon had given in to the voice of Bathsheba, he wouldn't have been king. The people would have kicked him off and said, well, he giving him a token of the kingship, then he must not want to be king. And then Adonijah would have came in and killed him, Bathsheba, and all of them. And our people, unfortunately, because we have been thrust out because we were disobedient to the Most High, and we denied his son and was thrust out amongst the nations. Our nations have dealt craftily with us and have placed our women and put our women, which I talked about in many videos, that the Bible had prophesied that the women would encompass us. They would, and that children would lead us. And this is why we see this kind of thing, right? And this is the thing that drives even some of the hearts of most men, because in most families, instead of the being a patriarchal thing where everything flows around the family, everything flows around the mother, and that is not what the Most High Yah created. Whenever you see in Bibles or whatever, it talks about of the fathers, of the fathers, of the fathers, of the fathers, not to neglect the mothers, but the rulership, right, is to come through the fathers to set things right, to set the, yes, your mother has as the Bible said in the book of Proverbs, she has a law of her mouth in raising her children. But once her son or even daughter gets to a certain age, they become an autonomous a person. That's why the Bible said when you get to a certain age, you will leave your father and your mother and cleave to your other mate, right? And so that we have to break this matriarchal mindset, right? And get a patriarchal mindset where you have the father that will defend his house and say, look, man, you ain't coming in here. You ain't coming up in here trying to get me or my family to make any statement about anything. We are going to agree, and then we will deal with whatever questions you have later on. But get out of our face right now. Get out of our face and let us do what we need to do. But we don't. We have that, kind of, and although black people, African Americans here in America are known to be, people that speak out against injustices and stand up for ourselves, yet in some areas we still are lacking because of this. We are still lacking because we have to break the matriarchal hold that is on our people, that causes us to want to follow peace. The Bible says, yeah, follow peace with all men, holiness without, right? No man shall see Yah. So we should, yes, try to follow peace, right? But if it's something that is an unholy thing, it is something that is a coerced thing, like they said, okay, just go out and say, like, you forgive them or whatever, because, when we go up for the civil suits and everything, and we try to sue these people and try to get their money, they're gonna want to know that you're not gonna call for destruction of the city. I think I remember that happening with one of those children. I want to say it was the boy that had the toy gun that the police shot time they pulled up, and they didn't even bother to see that he had a toy gun. I want to say that his mother, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, okay, let me just say this. I don't know if it was her, but I know in one of those shootings, one of the mothers that they asked to say, what do you say to the people that's riding and all these different things? Do you want me to tell them to stop? She said, no, I ain't telling them to stop. Burn it down. You understand? Now, even though she was a mother, she had that patriarchal heart. Not saying that that's the answer. Understand what I'm saying? But if you're going to press me, you're not going to give me a chance to grieve. If you're going to press me right at that moment when you know my mind is all over the place, my son just got gunned down and it's been put on camera or whatever, and you're just going to keep pressing me, you ain't giving me a chance to grieve, you ain't giving me a chance to think this thing out, yeah, I'm going to probably say, yeah, burn it down. You understand? But this is the kind of thing that we as men of the Most High Yah, we must start speaking out. We must start giving shield and cover to our mothers, our sisters, and say, oh, we speak for this thing. Why is it even at the in the family gatherings, and I'm talking about myself too, that it is always that the mothers are put forth that and understand they have done the job that they could do. They was pushed into this thing. It's not a thing of I'm being like Kevin Samuels that they intentionally went out and did it. They were thrust into this thing. And a lot of times they were thrust into this thing because a lot of us as black men were not complete in and ourselves. And when we got into relationships with these women, whether it was a one-night stand or whether it was a relationship or whether it was a marriage, because of our inadequacies and our inability to be the men that we call these women, it was like, well, we can't wait. We can't stay with these guys. These guys is dope heads. These guys is pimps. These guys is pushers. These guys is doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And I don't want to raise my children up in this. Not understanding, again, this was a plan of the enemy again, right, that he put us all in this situation, that this is an understanding that we got to cry out that our problems is not our enemies. Our problem is ourself. Our problem is on the inside of us. Then once we get ourselves right on the inside, the Bible said there's no weapon that is formed against us that will prosper, right? And I know people are saying, well, that's dealing with the gospel and all this and that. But that, back at that time, when that was written by Isaiah, that was dealing with armies that was coming against our people. So yeah, we can use that if we want to use it for salvation, but the original intent of that scripture by Isaiah was dealing with armies that were coming against us. That if we have the Spirit of the Most High, if we are complete in ourselves through Yeshua, because Yeshua came to make us complete, to help us to put ourselves into that position where the women would feel comfortable to let the man do the leading. But outside of that, right? And I'm not talking about this Christianity crap, because Christianity is a matriarchal thing. Because think about what happened when the Europeans took over this. They started immediately exalting Marian worship, which is exalting Ishtar worship, which is worshiping the mother goddess, which goes back to Babylon. That's why this whole world system is Babylon. But Yah had rose up Israel, his kingdom, to combat the child mother cult, the worshiping of Mary, the worshiping of Semiramis and all these different things, which is what you see in England. They are a matriarchal society, right? In a sense of the putting forth of the queen. Even though the men are leading the armies and this the thing, the spirit of Ashtaroth, the spirit of Columbia, which is in America, all these female deity goddesses are ruling over, and this is to stir up confusion, because the Bible said that the seed of the serpent would be against the seed of the woman, right? See, the woman is important because she is the one that produced the seed, but the seed is the one that's going to be leading destruction against the serpent. So what the serpent did, he brought up a false mother and a false seed, right? And he put that seed forth and said, and the principle of that seed, the religion of that seed spread throughout the whole world, right? It spread throughout the whole world, and it's to go and infect all whatever. That's why in this thing called Christianity, they can say all that they want to, but the images and different things that they have put forth, even when they were black, because it has to do with the principle of the mother child cult. They always go back to that scripture, and that's why I always go back to that scripture, and I always used to wonder why did Yeshua talk to his mother that way when she said, son, I need this, I'm catering this wedding and I need this or whatever. And he basically said, woman, what I have to do with you? You don't control me. And I think this was intentionally put in there to show people that no, the Messiah, our Savior, he is not being controlled by his mom. And even you see that periodically Yeshua would go back to see how his mother's doing, even though he had brothers and sisters that were there, because apparently something happened to Joseph, right? And he would have been the elder, but he periodically went back to check on his mother. But when and that's why I believe that his ministry was only 3.5 years, because no one could say that for the majority of Yeshua's life that he neglected his earthly mother. He didn't. But for those 3.5 years, he did ministry. Even during that time when he went off and he went into Capernaum and had his own place, and he didn't stay in Nazareth, he still came back to his mom to see how he was doing. And even when he was on the state, to see about how his mother was doing, he told the Apostle John this now is, I'm putting the care of my mother into your hands, right? Because back then, right, the matriarchal was not as strong as it is now. Women still tended to have to depend on if a husband died, if he had a brother, that brother-in-law would have to take up some duties. Now, of course, that stuff is not as it is now, because back even then, if you had a brother and he died, some of the cultures would have you to bring that wife and those children in, and that you would marry her and make her part, not so much as a sexual thing, but as a thing that she would be taken care of, because she would be under the shadow of your house, and that name would continue on. Now, in the book of Ruth, then that, they still was at the point of, yeah, you would marry her, and if she hadn't produced seed, you would lay down with, okay. But we understand that's not gonna be to us today, any of that. But the concept of the woman would not be out there without no covering, somebody to watch over her. But that because of our women, like I said, having no covering, but yet they thrusting them out there. This is why these kingdoms that surround us think they can come in and force us to give up our rights, to try to get retribution, to try to get compensation, reparations, get official apologies and all these things. That's why even now with this stuff going on with Biden, they're not even thinking about saying anything about a hate crime bill for black people. They would always say to us, we gave you the Emmett Till anti-lynching thing, right? Which we understand it is 100 years too late. But that if you were serious, you could go in and rearrange that bill and add into it the language for a hate crime, a portion of it to change. It would take very few, and it's already on the books. And what could the Republicans do? Just like a lot of these Republicans and Democrats make recess appointments when they're in recess, and then what the president will go do, he'll go appoint a judge position that's open during recess. They can't come in and overturn it, even though they say it's an underhanded tactic. It's ways that it can be done, but because of we having a matriarchal society, and you can even see it in the Congressional Black Caucus, that most of the Congressional Black Caucus members are women. You understand? And so again, we gotta start thinking in as a nation, and we as men, we can't just tell women, get out of here, we here to lead or whatever. No, we just gotta, wherever you at, you gotta start putting forth your leadership, your talents or whatever. And then what the Most High start doing when he starts seeing that we're serious about trying to come back in and doing what we're supposed to do according to the book of Ephesians, because he said the first head is Yeshua, then the men, then the wives, right? But what the devil has done, he's switched it up and put the women, and then he's put the men, right? And you can even see that in this murder that just happened in Atlanta with this female pastor. Here's a female pastor, in her 50s, right? And apparently her husband now, he said that she had this thing of trying to rehabilitate people that was incarcerated. Nothing wrong with that. But when you're talking about men, incarcerated men, and you going over to counsel and cause, he went over to a man that had just got out of prison. She went over without nobody to try to talk to some 27-year-old man in his home alone as a 50-something-year-old. I'm not saying there was no hanky-panky going on, but what I'm saying is the reverse. What was the husband? Now, from what I read, the husband said he told her, don't be doing this, but she did it anyway. She said, this is my ministry. This thing is backwards. This thing is backwards. This is why I'm saying, when y'all does start putting leadership thing back the way it is, it's going to be a lot of black men that's going to be in protest of that, and it's going to be a lot of black women that's going to be in protest. Why is it going to be a lot of black men that's in protest of that? There's going to be a lot of black men in protest because they don't want to be responsible for anything. They don't want to be married and responsible for, and I understand there are. I'm not talking to you that are. I'm talking to a lot of you out there that aren't. So if it's not you, if the shoe don't fit, don't try to wear it. I'm talking to those. You don't want to have responsibility. You don't want to defend your family. You don't want to defend your children. You want to see them fail so that you can say, aha, the woman tried to take my place and look what happened. Most High said, if you stand up and be what you are supposed to be, those that's trying to do your job will be able to do it half as good as you, and will eventually say, you know what, I'm operating in a position that I'm not supposed to be operating in. They will move out the way. But if to continue to put this thing up, but then there's gonna be a lot of black women that's got used to this, right? And even with the difficulties, they somewhat like being what they used to call spinsters, women that just like, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have children, whatever. But even to those that have children that still live in that kind of, they're not gonna want to, you know, move out the way when a black man comes up to the podium and say, no, we don't forgive him, get out of here, whatever. They're gonna be like, no. That's when we're gonna have to do like Solomon and say, look, mother, nah, I can't go along with what you doing. I know I made a throne pull up right beside mine, but there's the only one that's really ruling from the throne right now is me. That was a courtesy of you, but no, I'm not bending to your will. Or even as Yeshua said to Miriam, or Mary as in the European name, no, I don't bend to your whim or whatever, but in myself, I did this miracle in the wedding of Cana, not so much because, you know, you bossing me around, but because I see that this is a thing, a marriage is a good thing. It's a time to be joyous or whatever. So I turn the water into wine, but not at thy command, right? Because again, this thing is totally flipped up, and what you're gonna eventually find from funeral to funeral, press conferences is gonna come up with this Buffalo shooting. Do you forgive the guy? Do you do this? Do you forgive the family? Whatever. And I say unto thee, nay. Just like the woman down, the woman that had the young man that died in Orlando on the free fall ride. She and I hate to. At the beginning, they was coming to the father. The father was speaking out for his son, but now you don't see that. You don't see the fact that this father was standing up for us. And yeah, him and the mother are not together, but he was standing up. He was speaking up for his son. But now they did bring him out a little bit with Benjamin Crump or whatever. But for the most part, lately they have been concentrating only on him. I think definitely they should concentrate on both of them. But the father is there for his son. Give him some voices too, so that when they start asking these questions about forgiving and all this stuff, that father can stand in there and say, no, these people that did what they did, I want justice for my son Tariq. I want justice for him. That's time. That man's heart is broken. That woman's heart is broken. They need to deal with these things. Ask them later. This is enough of this. They don't give us a chance to grieve. This is why they want to get rid of CRT, because think about this, and I'm getting ready to end this video. But ever since we came, well, before we came to this country, let me lay this thing out for you. You walking through Africa, coming out of your village. You walking, and on the other side of the wall is some kidnappers waiting. When you come to the edge of that wall, they're gonna grab you up and they're gonna take you down to one of those 72 slave dungeons that they had on both coasts of Africa. I think they said, I could be wrong, but I think they said on the coast of all Africa, they have approximately 72 that I know of slave dungeons that they took slaves to. Some of them are falling into disrepair or might be overcovered. But let's just say they went to the Cape Coast. So you cut off from your family, never to see them again. Then you thrust into you taking on this track for hundreds and hundreds of miles, maybe thousands of miles, right? And on that, you see people getting killed. You seeing people getting eaten by wild animals. You seeing people raped and all this other kind of stuff. If you make it through that, then you get to the slave dungeons. If you make it, you ain't had a chance to grieve none at all, right? Because you just in trauma. If you have a chance to, then you get thrust into the slave dungeons, and hopefully it's not going to take 3 months for the ship that's going to take you to America to come. But if so, you're in that slave dungeon, not hardly being fed, covered in your own fecal matter, urine. You got people throwing up on you, dying, all this stuff. You're seeing rape, murder, all these things. You got some of these slave dungeons where they got churches above, where they're having church, and you can hear them praising the white Jesus above you or whatever. And all this time, you down there in the dungeon. You ain't having no time to grieve. Then if you make it through 3 months, however long that it is for that slave ship to come, the slave ship comes, and then they thrust you out of what they call the door of no return, and they tell you you'll never return through this door again. So you ain't even had a chance to grieve none of that. Then you put on this horrible vessel called a slaver, and then you're shackled up. Then you're taken below that, and you arm elbow to elbow, foot to foot, chain and land on your back for majority of the day. Because I think they did. Maybe if they would try to at least maybe once or whatever, and it just depends on the weather to try to get the slaves up or whatever for a few hours or whatever, walk them around, because they didn't want them to have apathy. So I don't want you to think that the slaves were laying on their back the whole 3 months. They had to put them up and let them, but for the most part, they spend the majority of their time during the day in shackled, and you got vomit, you got people dying, you got people different tribes speaking languages you don't understand. You scared. You heard that that white people, when they get people on these ships, they eat them, and indeed we find out that they do if they're running low on food. And then even some of them that had a taste for human flesh, that they would kill some slaves and eat them, and sometimes they just kill them for no reason at all. They would rape the women, right? And some women would get pregnant, and they got pregnant. Sometimes you would see them diving overboard with their children, or you just see a slave just dive over the board because he didn't want to, and sometimes he would be shackled up with other slaves, and if he dived over, all those slaves would go down in the water with him, and you would have all these sharks that would be swimming behind the slave ships, the slavers, and you would see this shark just feeding on them as they trying to swim, and they go on, and you just see this blood and all this. So you ain't had a chance. Then you would get to the middle of passage, right? And you didn't understand what language these people were saying, but they came over you and they did the sign of the Catholic cross when they got to the middle passage, and they said, your name is now this, you have been baptized into the Catholic Church or whatever. And then sometimes they would brand you, they would put a hot iron on you or a mark on you or whatever. So if you make it through the slave journey, then you will get to America. Then you will be put on an auction block, and y'all forbid if you had somehow had a family that was intact on that ship, you would see your loved ones parted from you on that auction block. So then you get auctioned off. You don't understand the language, but they tell you your name is gonna be this and whatever. And then they put you on a wagon, take you to plantation, and then to make you understand what they're saying, right? They put this whip on you. They do all this kind of stuff to you and give you these mental tasks to carry out for morning, noon, and night. And that is your existence until you die, right? So you don't have, if for some reason you have family and you had children, that trauma got passed on to them, and in subsequent generations that happened. So then that happened until slavery was quote unquote ended, but slavery in another form comes up, right? And so you go through this again, and then when Reconstruction is over, boom, then you go into Jim Crow. Boom, then you go into the lynching period. Then you go into the destruction of the Black Wall Street. Then you go into segregation. Then you go into desegregation. But you still have all these these plots and plans and stuff. So in all this, when have you had a chance to really grieve? And then when you get any little piece and you're trying to contemplate out, you're trying to learn everything that happened. They say we don't want nobody to learn about the history of this, what we did to you. We want you to tell us, do you forgive us and forget about it or whatever. When all from the time, like I said, that person got kidnapped, coming out of that village, nobody has had a chance to grieve. Now you tell me, is that fair? You tell me, if I come to somebody who had a white person that had a family member that fought in the Revolutionary War, that I would come to them and say, you need to forget about all that stuff that your family went through in the Revolutionary War. It is what it is. They look at you crazy. They probably try to shoot you if you said something like that. But yeah, they don't want that to be so for us. We got to be quiet, and because our quote unquote leaders integrated us into this thing, they said part of the deal was you would forget all that trauma, but you will live with it, and you take that trauma out, and it don't matter how much money you got or how less money you got. If you don't learn how to deal with that trauma, you're going to have destruction in your family. And even if you get saved, you get born again, the Bible said, my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? Now, I'm gonna hold back that part because they reject the knowledge, because a lot of this stuff coming out, they told us, they didn't tell us about, but now we're learning about it. So now that we're learning about it, right, we have a chance to receive this knowledge. Let us process it. But instead, what they try to get us to do, they want us to reject knowledge, which is what the scripture fully says. He said, my people perish for lack of knowledge because they have rejected knowledge. I will not reject the knowledge of what you have done to me. I will not reject the knowledge. I will not reject the massacres. I'm not looking at it to grab hold of hate and all these different things, whatever. I will go through the hatred and the feelings of injustice and everything, but just like everybody else, I have the right to go through that and the processes and get to where I need to get to. But for you to outright tell us to reject the knowledge when it is there is unfair, and it will not stand. It will not stand. And even if you put it into laws that you forbid it to, the information is out there now. It's just like a lion that has escaped the zoo. You can't get it back in there. 9 times out of 10, that lion is not going to go back into that zoo. You're going to have to kill that lion before it gets back in that cage. And I wouldn't blame it. So the knowledge is out there. All these things you hear from us about the slave Bible, you had to understand that eventually it was going to come up. You had to understand that. But all throughout the time we was enslaved, you whipped the slave to tell him to forget his land, forget this, right? And you just kept whipping, and you just let all this stuff build up. But what you didn't understand, but it was also building up into the heavens. And then the Most High Yah said, woe unto the nation that is founded all unrighteousness. That's why black and white relationships can't be honest. Because if I quote unquote got a white friend, right, but then I'm coming into the knowledge of all this wicked stuff that was done to my ancestors, and I try to discuss it with this quote unquote white friend, he ain't gonna want to hear it. Because 9 out of 10, maybe he didn't know about it, and maybe if he did know about it, it was not of no interest to him, but it is in interest to me. So either I'm going to give up the knowledge that dealing with me, and this say, well, I'm just going to concentrate on his knowledge, which is totally not equitable and totally unrealistic. And we would say that I'm looking at my race as being a debased people, which is not fair. That's why it can't be. That's why he said, can 2 walk together except they agree? I would have to say 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10 that if you had a quote unquote white friend and you told him about this, hey, I discovered this about my family, I discovered this about white people, and you say this to him, the 10s out of 10 times he gonna be like, I don't want to hear that because you're talking about me, right? And if you're talking about me, my ancestors, you talking about me, because the Bible said no man hateth his own flesh. That's why they don't want it, because to sit down and have this conversation, there can never be no reconciliation, because then, like I said, then it would have to say we are the most the based of people, right? When and if their actions was different, then we could say, okay, well, that was your people back then, but you ain't that way now, right? But you are still that way now in different ways. And you might need to know that's why the Bible it said many are called, few are chosen. There are very few Caucasian people that would want to live under the understanding of all this stuff that they did. And rightfully so, that they have been always put up on the pedestal, that it would be psychological torture to them to say, you know what, everything I learned which is a lie, which is what the Bible says. He said that their children would say, we have inherited lies. The scripture is spot on. You understand that and you wonder why you see all of them out strung out here on these drugs. You remember the hippie movement and all these those things that happened back in the 60s when the white youth, so not all of them, but some of them start understanding some of these things about their what they were doing around the world, when they was understanding what the CIA was doing, what they was doing to the people in the civil rights. And some of them said, you know what, we want to hang out, we want to cop out, we don't want to go to college, we just want to get high, we want to go into some community, we just want to have orgies because we just want to crash out. We don't want to deal with none of this crazy stuff that our parents have perpetrated around the world. The only problem with that is those that made it through the hippie movement, they became the yuppies. They grew up and said, you know what, I can't help my history or whatever, but I got all this money, this prestige and everything for what my forefathers did. So therefore, I'm going to have to put on a corporate suit. I'm going to have to cut my hair. I'm going to put down the bong, and I'm going to have to rule over these people just like my ancestors, because I'm not giving up that power. So that's why I say it would be very few of them that would, you know, cling on. If you say, you know what, then I want equity. I want that which your forefathers should have gave me. They're going to like, no. Yeah, we friends, but I'm not going there. This, you know, we can be friends like this, but when we step out this, whatever, it's war. You see what I'm saying? So again, you know, we just gotta understand that we gotta allow ourselves to see these things and go through the pain and anguish and let it process. Don't just say, well, if I talk about this, I'm gonna offend them. Hey, the truth is gonna set you free. And if to them that really want to be set free, they will be set free if they also understand, yeah, I can go through the period of rejection of it at first, but I should move on to the thing of acceptance and then also accept the responsibility, because all the things that our forefathers did back in the land and rejecting of Yeshua told us in the word that we would not see any relief until we said. He wasn't talking about that generation. He was talking about the generations to come. You will not see me again until you. Who he talking to? He talking to me. But I wasn't the one back there that said crucify him. But in my loins, I had the DNA of those people that did. And therefore, since I'm living in this time and I understand what his prophecy said, I'm going to say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of Yahuwah, and say, my forefathers were evil for denying him, and I ask forgiveness. That's what you're going to have to do, Gentile believer. And look at all the stuff that you have done and make retribution, because you do have funds that come from all the things that was done. And the Bible said, woe unto the city that is established on unrighteousness. That's why America will have to go down, because it was founded on unrighteousness, even though you try to say it was of a Christian nation. But first and foremost, there was no such thing as Christianity, and the message was not first given to y'all. It was first given to us. You usurped it, and then you changed the form and the purpose of it to enslave people through the image of the beast, Caesar Borgia, and through the wood, the cross, and the stone, the cobblestone of Islam. He said that would be our fate in the lands that we would be trafficked off into. And so again, I know this is a hard message for everyone, including our people, because even dealing with this stuff where we have this quote-unquote black on black crime, that there's got to be some people that's got to stand up in the black community and say there's got to be some retribution for all this killing of your people, that this can't go on. Right now, people are getting upset with the attorney general, the district attorney of Atlanta, Fulton County rather, I'm saying, for prosecuting the rappers, but not the black rappers, and not prosecuting the white rapper. Obviously, I definitely believe that she should do that. If this guy's lyrics is dealing with actual murders that he has knowledge of, they should do that. Tucker Carlson too, with his replacement theory, and whoever else came up, if they putting this kind of stuff out, then yes. But we got to deal. The Bible said judgment must first begin with us. There's so much more killing going on amongst us that we have to address it. If we don't want the police to address it, somebody has to address it, right? And understand this, the Bible said evil men shall wax worse and worse. So this thing ain't gonna get no better. But somebody still gotta stand up and be heard, and that's where our brothers, we gotta stand up. You know, we gotta stop loud and understand there's some women that desire to jump into that position. Like I said, it's not our job or my job to go boot them out. It's my job just to go do what Most High called me to do. And then if somebody have the problem with that, then I'm gonna tell them that this is what the Most High ordained me. He ordained me to lead my family, right? He ordained me to do this, right? And if that comes in conflict with what the matriarchal society says, then so be it. I got to do what the Most High, because he said that the man, he put the onus on us, and therefore he put the onus on us. You might as well step in and do what you're supposed to, no matter who gets mad. Just like Solomon told Bathsheba, I'm not doing what you tell me to do, because if I do, my kingdom going to be destroyed, and I'll be destroyed right along with it. So with that, I ask you to give this video a thumbs up, to leave a comment, and to subscribe. Be blessed.